Alright, so I'm going to build one of these. This is a Rekon FPV 5-inch long range, and if you've seen my Chimera 7-inch series, I'm not going to do such an extensive series this time. I'm just going to sort of highlight the bits and pieces that you might need to know, and if you sort of want details about configuration and setup and those sorts of things, then have a look at the other series. Obviously I will share the tuning details that I get from this, but other than that, just sort of highlights of what I found. So this frame, so I've just done a little bit of a partial assembly just to start for this frame. You can see it's pretty skinny. It's got these 4mm arms and then just some very skinny bits. And what I'm planning to do is mount, I've got a RunCam Phoenix 2 Joshua Bardwell edition to mount. Hoping to use this Holybro Tekko Mini 4-in-1. And then I've got a Maytech A743 Slim and a Maytech GPS, and then the TBS Tracer 69, so that's a combined VTX and RX. And then I'm using these beautiful little T-Motor 2004 on these open motors. You can see the kind of little pancakes that will fit on the end there. So the big question is really, will it all fit? Because both the Maytech board and the ESC they're not just a standard 20x20, they're a little bit longer. And my worry is that this is not going to fit. So I'm going to sort of dry assemble this and see what works and what doesn't. And if it doesn't fit, then I'm going to have to consider some alternative components. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I've dry assembled the frame. It goes together very nicely, and you've got all these nice TPU parts. They're a bit stiff to get the pillars, these aluminium pillars in the TPU, but it works okay. The GPS holder is quite flexible. I don't know how strong that's going to be, but I guess it's protected between the frames here, so hopefully that's okay. And there's two options for the video and antenna. There's sort of antenna in a V shape at the back with the VTX in the middle, or you can just have a plain old VTX, and then I think there's some kind of holder for an Immortal T on the side, so I'm going to go for that option, because the Tracer 69 comes with a little UFL to SMA connector, so hopefully that will fit in the back there. It'll fit on the Tracer 69 somehow. Looks a little bit tight, but we'll see. And then the Immortal T can fit out the side. So in terms of the other parts fitting, so the ESC fits quite nicely there, so that's great. And I can't remember where I have a feeling in the pictures they've got the pigtails sort of coming out the front here with the battery band mounted back to front, which actually would be quite good because then the pigtails away from the GPS and compass. But the Maytech Mini, here's a sort of dev one I've got, doesn't fit that way. I mean, it does just about, but the problem is it's touching these pillars, and that'll be awful for vibration. So if I'm going to use this, it's going to have to be mounted sideways, and that actually doesn't seem so bad when you actually see it. So you mount it sideways, it's protected by the arms and most of the base plate there. So I think even in the event of a crash, it'll be pretty good. And actually, if you mount it sideways, then the motor connector comes out. The problem is the USB connector's in the wrong place. That's going to be a bit of a pain. So I just can't mount it this way though. It's just going to be too much vibration doing it that way. So it's going to have to be sideways. What I'd probably do is, there's a new Holybro H7 Mini, Tekko32 H7 Mini coming out that is the right form factor. So I'll probably do this with the Matek, and then when I get the Holybro flight controller working, I'll probably put that in instead, because that'll be a little bit more convenient. Obviously it means I have to sort of resolder stuff, but it's not the end of the world. All right. Okay, so I've assembled a little bit more, and a few things to note here. So I'm using these stabilizing arms, which I think will give a bit more rigidity to the frame, a bit of strength. But the rigidity in particular, because that will lower sort of jarring noise and give me a better tune. But one thing to note is that they supply these 9mm M2 hex nuts to go through, but they're not really long enough. So you can get about 3mm, I think 2 or 3mm. What's this? This is 3 plus 4 is 7. So there's 2mm here, and you can actually get 3mm in here. So what you really want is 10mm hex nuts, which they don't provide and which are not in the T-Motor packaging. So I've ordered some of those. I'm going to use the 9mm. I had a couple of spares, but I've ordered some. So I'm going to use the 9mm for now, but I've ordered some 10mm because those go a lot better. The T-Motor supplied hex nuts fit nicely on the thinner part of the arm. That's fine, gives the right protrusion. Those are the longest ones in the T-Motor package. And you can see that I've put the motors on, and I've put some heat shrink over the arm first before putting the motor on, and then threaded the wires through, and I'll shrink all that up when it's soldered on. The camera, you can't get the camera in without taking off the TPU mount, so I had to take the TPU mount off, put the camera back in, which you can see. And the reason I did that was because I do want to mount it this way, so I want the wires to come up through. You see there's a little space there for the pigtail to come through. I want them to come up through there, but I've also got to I've got to fit in a capacitor somewhere. And the one that Holybro provide is it's like 1000 microfarads, and it's just a bit too long. So I've got a 470 microfarad ESR cap here. It's 35 volts, same as the other one. It's shorter, which is the main thing. I've used these on these Tekko32s before, and it's fine. I'm not sure whether these might go to 6S, in which case you maybe need that, but I'm only going to 4S. So what I'm going to do is mount that underneath, sort of backwards like that, and then hopefully that there was just enough space below the camera there to fit in. I'll give it a little bit of play so that, but I think that'll be good. And then I'll mount the cables on top. The Tekko doesn't come with a pigtail, so I've borrowed one from one of the other flight controllers I've got, and I'm actually going to put slightly thicker wire on. So this is 14 gauge here, so I'm going to use the 14 gauge wire rather than, this must be 16 gauge I would guess, can't see, but I think that's a little bit too thin, so I'm going to use 14 gauge wire on there. That'll pop up nicely. And then the other thing to say is that the UFL to SMA pigtail that TBS provide with the Tracer 69, these flanges are too big, so I can't, this won't go through enough. I've tried various means of doing it, so I need another one. There is a TBS do this Tango adapter cable, Tango 2 adapter cable, which looks like it might do the trick, so I've ordered that and we'll see whether that works. But you can see I need one of these without the flanges on, otherwise I can't get it through far enough. So I ordered that, ordered the hex nuts, and I think I will now, I'll solder up the ESC to the motors, to the pigtail, and see where we go. I can't remember whether I mentioned, but this is the Maytech board mounted sideways. The problem with that is the USB is in the middle, so you really can't. It's going to be very hard to get it. I suppose I can probably go around the side here, but I think what I'll do is put the Tekko32 H7 on when that arrives, because it'll be quite a nice little board there and go nicely with the Holy Bro ESC. Okay, so you can see I've soldered that up, and in the end the capacitor needed to be pointing slightly down just to make it past the camera, and the pigtail I had to actually solder vertically upwards, otherwise it wouldn't. It was too stiff to sort of bend round, so I sort of soldered vertically upwards, and I've chopped these down to just over 60mm, which from the pre-assembled version you can see on the web looks about right. It'll sort of stick in there quite nicely, come over the top there, and I think that will be good. So I'll probably next just power up the ESC with a flight controller attached, just to check that it is actually live, and check that the firmware is up to date on the ESC, and if that all looks good, I'll solder it to the motors. Okay, so a little update here. So pass-through didn't work with the Maytech flight controller, either of the Maytech flight controllers, which makes me think there's possibly something to do with the ESC. So I've sort of updated the settings via Betaflight, the ones I wanted, and generally you can probably leave them at the default as long as everything else works. So that's one thing. The other thing is the flight controller mounting. So although this frame is great, they only sent me 3 bolts for the flight controller mount. I think it should be 4, but actually in the end I'm not going to use these anyway. So these are M3. What I've found is with the Holy Bro 20x20 devices, so both this Tekko and the Kahoot minis, with the grommets, they're designed to take an M2 bolt, not an M3 bolt. So actually if you put an M3 on there, you probably won't fit. I mean, you could probably get this guy on without the grommets, but you definitely want the grommets for the flight controller. So I'm going to have M2 bolts in here, and luckily I've had this problem with other mini quads before, so I've got some already, and these are the same length as the ones provided, and they are 20mm. Those are 20mm M2 bolts. But then the other problem is, of course, that the holes in the bottom of the frame are M3 holes, and so you can't just screw it straight in, because bolt won't be tight. Now what I've used in the past is these little brass, they call these hollow rivets. You can get them off Banggood or somewhere, or eBay. I think eBay. And these for other mini quads work great. I think these are 3mm tall, and you sort of get the M3 to M2. I don't know whether you can really see that, but it maps M3, it converts M3 to M2. The problem is that actually this 3mm length is too tall for this very thin bottom plate. So although normally I'd use these, I can't in this case. And so what I've done is I've put some M2 nylon washers on the bottom, and then some M2 nylon knots on the top, which is fine. The only problem is they don't sit evenly in the hole, so these can move around. So what I need to do is get the ESC in the right position and then tighten the nuts so that they're in there, because if I just tighten them now, these bolts will be slightly in the wrong place and it'll be impossible to get on. Maytech have obviously thought about this problem, because Maytech ship these little through rivets with their flight controller, but again these are too tall for this frame, so different approach. I actually went on eBay, you can't get them any shorter than this, so my options would be to cut these down, which I don't really fancy doing, or trying it this way, so hopefully this will work. Okay, and there we are. You can see that I've soldered all the wires on, the cables are laid straight. I'll shrink the heat shrink when I'm sort of fully confident that it's in the right position. You can see I took the camera case off just so I could get this on a little bit more easily and see where the cap is sort of makes into the space, which is quite good. And hopefully there's enough clearance on these bolts for the flight control. I think it should just be about be okay. I mean, if push comes to shove, I can sort of rejigger this, but it's a bit of a pain when it's all soldered on. But that should be good. And might just power it up, see whether we've actually got life. There we go. There's no flight controller, so we're not going to get any more than did, but there we go. Brilliant. While I'm here, I may as well test. So I've plugged in Maytech Mini, and this time hopefully if I power on, so the motors, the air seams are arming, which is great. You plug in my computer and just try a little test. Okay, and there we go, they're all working, which is brilliant. Job done. All right.